Hey everybody, this is Rayma Mariello, and I am actually going to do a video blog entry today. I want to do that, and I'm doing it in front of this window intentionally because we have moved into this house, and we've been here for a little over a year now. And when we moved in, I am currently sitting actually in our kitchen at our kitchen table. And if you look behind me, the window behind me looks into our neighbor's yard and actually into their driveway. And what I learned really quickly after we moved in is that sweet family lives next to us, but uh, the gentleman that lives there spends a lot of time out in his car that looks at our house. And so he could see everything that was going on from this window, in the kitchen. And so instead of being a normal human being and like closing the curtains because it's creepy when people are watching you, knowing that people are watching you, I was like, okay, I want them to know that we're not a weird family. I want them to think that I don't know that they're watching. So I would spend a lot of time like cleaning this kitchen table, and everything that you could see from this window was like spotless. But everything that you can't see, the dishes were piled up. Like there's food still on the counter. All the other rooms in the house were complete chaos. But what you could see, I made a point to keep clean and neat and tidy. I would make sure I wouldn't like wear a robe in front of the window. We would all eat dinner together and laugh, and it. I'm not saying I'm normal or a sane human being, but I'm just letting you know kind of the process of my thinking. But if we think about it, this actually can be a great reflection of how we will live our lives. Oftentimes, we will spend a lot of our effort and strength into refining and perfecting the things that people can see, and we will often neglect the areas in our lives that are not noticed by the people around us. We will have a ton of skeletons that are in our closet, or we'll have like a lot of messiness in other areas of our lives, but we do a really great job of keeping the things that are very visible, our gifts and our talents, even our outward appearance, just our status. We keep those very neat and tidy. I know I'm guilty of it because who wants to be judged by those around us for things in our lives being sloppy? We want to keep up our appearances. And what's fascinating is that there's a story in First Samuel chapter, let me see, starting in chapter 8. Samuel was a prophet, and the nation of Israel wanted a king like all of the other nations around them. They didn't want to be different. They wanted a king as well. And so God said, give them what they're asking for, anoint a king. And so Samuel anoints Saul as king over Israel. And it says that he was a head taller than anyone else. He was extremely good looking, and so by natural perception and perspective, he would be what the nation would think would be a strong king just based off of his appearance. And it goes on in the story, and it talks about how God commanded Saul to go in and completely wipe out and kill everything in this town. Saul took his army, he went in and he killed all the people, but he took the sheep and all of the livestock out, and he was going to sacrifice those to the Lord. And God spoke to Samuel and said, go and tell Saul, I know that he was disobedient. And so Samuel went after Saul, and told him, what is the sound I'm hearing? I'm hearing sheep, I'm hearing cattle. And, Saul had a really great answer. I was going to worship these things to the Lord. And what's interesting is that God never said I needed a sacrifice. All I needed was his obedience. And the underlying factor is that while Saul looked great on the outside, his heart and his motives were a complete disaster. He was doing a lot of things for self recognition. He asked Samuel to come up on the hill and to worship Samuel's God with him so that he wouldn't be shamed in front of the leaders of Israel. And it's just interesting that he said that he was worshiping Samuel's God. He never claimed God to be his God. And so right out of the gate, Samuel's heart drifted quickly. His heart and his motives were not right. And God saw that. And he actually removed the anointing of kingship off of Saul and told Samuel, go and anoint a son of Jesse. And so Samuel's mourning, that the first king was a hot mess and he wasn't working as a king. And so he went to the house of Jesse and he went to go anoint one of his sons as the new king. And the very first son that he comes across is, let me find his name. I think it's Eliab. And it says here that when they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. And he was looking at his outward appearance and saying, he looks like a king. Surely God would pick this human being to take Saul's place. And then God said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And so he goes through all the sons of Jesse, and none of them were chosen until Samuel finally asked, you have a younger son. And that son was David. And they called David in, and God said, this is my anointed. This is the one who's going to take Saul's place as king. He is the one that Samuel anointed to take his place. But what's fascinating about David is that he is known as the one after God's heart. He had spent a lot of time as a shepherd, protecting the sheep. God was preparing his heart. He was doing things in obscurity where he wasn't being noticed and he wasn't being applauded and he wasn't being recognized, but he still played songs to the Lord. He still surrendered every area of his life to the Lord. There were no closets. There were no things that David kept from the Lord, and his heart was pure. And so I think we can learn a lot from this story about our motives and about our need to be seen and recognized by those around us. I think that's natural. We want to be liked. We want to be celebrated. We want to feel important. But oftentimes that can become an idol in our life. When that becomes the most important thing that we're after is human recognition, that is a very slippery slope at that point. We no longer are concerned about our spiritual health or the condition of our heart. We are more concerned about appearances and recognition and favor with people. And sometimes we can even be guilty of, praying to God for things like, God, expand my creative abilities so that I can be selected for the project or something at school. God, open doors for finances so that I can buy a bigger house or have more of this or that. Or God, give me favor in the sight of men so that I will be the best candidate. Make me a great wordsmith so that people would be drawn to the things that come out of my mouth. And to be honest with you, asking for creativity, asking for wisdom, asking for favor, asking for platforms in and of themselves aren't wrong. It's the motive behind why we're asking them that can make them wrong. We can be so driven by what people think that we keep the things that are unseen very unhealthy. And I just want to encourage all of you guys to really reflect on the position of your heart. When is the last time that you've asked God, to search your heart? So for the past 6 months consistently, I've been praying the prayer that actually David prays in Psalm 139. It's verses 23 and 24, and he says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." And when you pray this prayer, expect things to come up that aren't necessarily beautiful. I know God searched my heart, and I have had things come up that have been ugly, that have been selfish and hateful. There have been moments that I have just been disgusted by my conduct and even my motives. That my words would say one thing, but my heart really meant something else. That there were moments when I did things uh, cloaked in doing it for the Lord, but really God showed me it was for my benefit or my gain. And I just want to show you guys that I'm human, and I'm a work in progress too. But I think it's really important that we are allowed to be vulnerable, not with just one another, but we stand vulnerable before the Lord. And that, like the window behind me, my life isn't open for God in just the areas that people can see, but I really want God to get into the places that people can't see. I want him to get into my character and my integrity and my motives and my patience and the areas that I might be driven by fear or anxiety. Like, I want God to get into those areas, because believe it or not, it's actually the things that are unseen that manifest themselves into the things that are seen. So I would rather have God do a great massive work on the inside and allow those things to spill out and be seen by those around me in a pure nature, instead of trying to mask my wrong motives in false humility. I just want to encourage all of you guys, maybe today, this is a good reminder to let God really work on the inside of you and to work on your heart before you are asking him to refine and work on, your gifts and your talents, or to provide you an open door or a platform. I know that this is kind of the second message that I've done that really talks about platform and being recognized publicly, because I think far too often that's what we are motivated to pursue. And God isn't driven by that. He's not driven by our fame. He's driven by his fame. And I think he wants to provide us with a platform. He wants to provide us with an opportunity to have our voice be heard. But he is not going to open that door or allow us to do that if our very salvation could potentially be at risk. I think that he would keep that door shut if it meant that our character and our integrity would destroy us, and it would ruin our testimony or the message that he wants to share through us. So, here's my face. This is my first video vlog. But be encouraged that God is for you. He is on your side. He wants to do great and mighty things in and through your life. I believe in each and every one of you. I pray for all of you that will be seeing this and that read our blog, because I really want all of you to be who God has created you to be and to do what God has created you to do, because I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. God wants to use every single one of us to further his name on this planet. So just be encouraged today. And if you want to follow our blog, make sure you go to the submit uh, portion on the front page of our blog to get updates. Talk to you guys soon.